Hi, good morning. So today we'll go ahead and take a look at one of the database services that's available. In the last session, we saw about relational databases. Today, we'll take a look at the other databases. Last class, we saw about RDS, Relational Database Service. Today, we'll start with DynamoDB. The agenda will be after DynamoDB, I'll be teaching you about a database called in-memory database Elasticache. Then we'll also be talking about another database service, which is not mentioned here, but it is under the analytics section. It's called as Redshift. Should be somewhere down. Yeah, Amazon Redshift here. So Redshift is also a relational database, but it's called as a data warehouse database. So we'll talk about Redshift at a later point in time. We'll move on and start talking about the NoSQL database, which is DynamoDB. Just going back. We'll start with DynamoDB. DynamoDB, as the name says here, it's mentioned here in short form, what the database is all about. It's called as a managed NoSQL database. So what do you mean by NoSQL database and what do you mean by managed? Let's go ahead and understand that. Whenever you hear under the database section, everything that's mentioned here are managed databases only. When we say managed, AWS will allow, AWS is offering you the service of managing your database, like taking backups, going ahead and updating the database software. Database, remember, is a software. So it requires constant updation. So that will be taken care by AWS. AWS also offers other services in addition to just maintaining and taking backups. So that varies from database to database. So ease of creation of database, all that is taken care by AWS. So that's the only reason why we move on to why database administrators would prefer to go for a managed database by AWS rather than creating their own databases by installing a database software on a compute environment like EC2. So this is much better option because the tasks that generally are responsibilities of database administrators are pretty much can be handed over to AWS, and AWS will automate that particular task, and it's much more simpler and easier and well organized way of using these databases. Well, that's the concept of managed. Now let's talk about DynamoDB as a product. Now DynamoDB is a NoSQL database. When I say NoSQL database, SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Now DynamoDB is a product of Amazon. AWS created this particular database for their own use. So why did they create this DynamoDB in the first place? Before NoSQL, before DynamoDB, AWS could not go ahead and, the issue that they faced before DynamoDB was created is because they could not go ahead and have more products on Amazon.com and expect the products details to be, available in just a click. So see here, if I just go to Amazon.com or .in. So all these products, doesn't matter what we are clicking. So I'm just clicking on one of the products I see right now. You will notice just because my net connection is very slow, it is taking some time to come. Otherwise, any product that you see, any product, okay? So it's a cover for some bike. I'm just clicking on it and you will be able to see that this product's information is up in no time. That's all because all the products of Amazon is saved in a DynamoDB database. And DynamoDB keeps information about all the products, say for example, this particular Scooty's body cover, all this information is kept in one single document. It is not kept in multiple tables. DynamoDB is just a single table which contains information about this is an item, the item's attributes, like this is one photograph is an attribute, second photograph is another attribute, the cost details are another attribute, any video related to this is a different attribute. So for an item and the item's relevant attributes are all saved in one single table. Like that, Amazon has multiple items. You'll be able to see they have categorized the items into various, categories. So these are all items, and you have these are all items, and these are all attributes of the item. This is an attribute of the item called as the Scooty body cover. Okay, so let's go ahead and understand how a NoSQL database is created and its use case. So see, let's click on DynamoDB. As it opens up, again, it's not opening up fast because of the slow net connection here. Excuse me for that. So I would highly recommend that you always watch this video, especially with whatever is there in we are here. We're clicking on this DynamoDB and you'll be able to see the summary of what this particular database is, how it works, benefits and features, and use cases also. I highly recommend you to go ahead and give this a reading whenever you have time. Anyways, we'll be explaining this only. So as I was saying, this DynamoDB database is just a single table. Unlike a relational database which can have multiple tables, DynamoDB itself is just one table. And inside this table, you will be going ahead and adding what's called as an item. And that item will have attributes, properties. So if we want to go ahead and sell, let's say, a scooter, the scooter is an item, and the properties, the color of the scooter, the other details, aspects of that particular scooter, the item's properties are called as attributes. You can keep adding. So we'll go ahead and take a look at how to create a DynamoDB database. This is a dashboard which goes ahead and shows, hey, how many databases you have. Right now, I don't have any, so it's not showing me any. CloudWatch is monitoring this database also. So CloudWatch doesn't have any alarm set. We'll be talking about what is Dax as well. So I'll come to that part a little later. So as you see here, so right now I don't have any DynamoDB database. So we have to create one. Let's go ahead and create one. Let's create a table. One table is a DynamoDB database. Okay. So just call it as DynamoDB. Okay. So this is the DynamoDB's table. I'll call it as DynamoDB itself. You can give it any name you want to. Let's say this is DynamoDB demo. Okay. Now, when you go ahead and create a database, you need to go ahead and search for an item. Like for example, see here, these are all items. They've categorized it, right? So like this, you have to go ahead and search. If you want to search for, let's say, baby products, you will click on baby and it will show all the relevant baby products. So like that, you have to go ahead and say, hey, how are you going to identify an item in your table? So I'll call it as item category, for example. Just put as item cat. So how will you go ahead and identify a cat? Item, you'll just go ahead and write a name, right? So name is categorized as a string. So by the way, you're not becoming a database administrator here. This is just a demonstration of how a DynamoDB gets created in the backend. You don't have to access it. You don't have to create it for the purpose of this AWS Solutions Architect exam. But an understanding of how a database gets created is very useful, especially when you see, you understand better. Okay, so so there's absolutely no rule as such. It's a schema-less database. You can go ahead and you just give it a name and you say, hey, how you want to go ahead and identify an item. And if you want, you can also have a sort category and say, hey, out of all the items, how would you go ahead and sort it out? So it's like, popularity or something like that. You can sort out if you want to. Popular. Okay, so how popular it is, or about with ratings, you can go ahead and sort out. So like this, you can go ahead and ratings should be a number. So we'll go ahead and write like this. This is optional. This is the primary key is essential, and then you go ahead and give it a name. Now, once this is done, say by default, this database requires CPUs to read and write. It also requires hard drive to keep this information. It requires a network interface card. All that is already provided by AWS for you to just use it. So how is it provided? They give what's called as read capacity units and write capacity units. How many reads you do per second, how many writes you do per second, and for that, how much CPU, memory, hard drive, everything is needed, they automatically provision. To begin with, they give you 5 read capacity units and 5 write capacity units. That's how this is a serverless database. You do not have to bother and create a server in the backend. Without any servers, automatically database gets created and the required CPU, memory, hard drive, everything gets allocated for you as and when you need. So this is the initial setting. So if you want, you can customize it in a production environment. Default settings might not work, so they can customize the settings and they can say, hey, what kind of database you want? Is it for general purpose? Is it for infrequently accessed type of database? So you can choose what you want, and then you can go ahead and use what's called as a capacity calculator. And in this capacity calculator, you'll go ahead and mention, hey, how many items, what would be the size of each item that you would keep in the database, how many items you would want to read and write per second. You can increase and decrease this. And do you want the database to be, as soon as it's written, do you want it to be read immediately? If yes, it's called strongly consistent. If you want the item to be eventually consistent means later on, after a couple of seconds, if you want an updation to be seen, it's called eventual consistent. Okay, transactional means if you are using this database to do some transaction, let's say you're buying and selling items using this DynamoDB, then it's a transaction. So how would you want that kind of, if you want a read to happen in a transactional manner, if for every read you want an acknowledgement, it's called as a transactional type of read consistency. Same is the case with write. Write, you have only, say if we go with strongly consistent, this option will change. Okay, so write consistency, you have 2 types, standard and transactional only. So you choose what type of, how soon your read should happen, how soon your write should happen. So these are the 2 types of, you need to tell AWS how you want it. So depending on the choice that you make, the cost will go ahead and vary. See here, the cost varies based on the type of read and write you would want to make. Then do not go for this particular option. Don't customize these settings. So please go with the default settings only. Now, why I'm asking you to go with the default settings is because you and me are not aware of, creating a database. default settings enables any customer who does not know about the internal workings of the database to go ahead and use the best options that is available while creating the database. Then if you want, you can put a tag. You can say what type. I'm just going to go ahead and say, hey, this is just for the purpose of demo. I'm creating this DynamoDB, and you could choose to create the table here. So you notice that creation of a table will take a while, not too much, but it will take some time to create. In the meantime, when this is happening, let's go ahead and take a look at aws.amazon.com. Products, database, DynamoDB. Now, this is a page which goes ahead and gives you the overview of this particular DynamoDB database. It tells you what is its use, okay, how does it actually work, use cases, and some customer reviews are also mentioned here. And it talks about I would highly recommend you go through this particular picture. We'll go through it together a little later. So my focus is to go ahead and talk to you about the pricing. Customers are generally interested in knowing, hey, I'm creating a database. How much do I pay? Is it free? You know, such questions do arise. So for that, it is always, good that you go ahead and see. So DynamoDB is available on free tier as well. So what is available for free, you can take a look at. That's why I chose the standard one. Say, does DynamoDB offer a free tier? You're all free tier users if you have just started learning. So you would notice that this is a free tier eligible database. You get 25 GB of storage space, 25 read capacity units and write capacity units, and that can handle around 200 million requests per month. Very good option to go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so do give it a try. Let's take a look at the database here. It's currently active, so my database is up. So let's take a look at how to update the table. So these are certain terminologies you should know. When you're creating a DynamoDB database, you create a table. One table is enough. Now after that, what you do, this is the overall information of how you created the table, and how many items are there. Right now, I don't have any items. So if you want to go ahead and put some information in the database, you have to create an item and update it. So how do you go ahead and create an item and update it? You can explore table items. Right now, you would see there are absolutely no items. You can create an item here. Let's say the category of an item is called baby. So baby products you want to go ahead and search. Okay. The ratings, if you want, you can sort out. Right now, I'm just not giving it any number. So let's create an item. So there is an item here called as baby. So like this, you can create multiple items. I can create another item also. What should be the other item? Let's say, create women. Okay, dress, let's say. Okay, women clothes. Like this, you can create multiple items. This is how Amazon would have created multiple items. So let's take one item. How do they update this item? So for one item, they create what's called as an attribute. Attribute means properties. So add a new attribute. What type of attribute? Let's say string. What kind of an item? Baby toys. Let's say toys. Okay. What 4 years and above, is that? Above, save. So like this, now I have one item here. Okay, if I look at this is called the JSON view. So about this item, every information about the item, it's a baby product, it is for children above 4 years, and you can put any information and every information relevant to this particular item here. This is the JSON view. JSON means it's a way of writing a code. It starts with curly braces and ends with the curly braces. So it starts with the curly braces, ends with the curly braces. Developers go ahead and use such a way of writing to write the codes. You don't have to use this. If you just fill up this form, automatically the form gets converted to the JSON format. Okay, so you can go ahead and have up to 32 attributes for you can nest attributes inside attributes up to 32 levels. You can go ahead and create. So pretty much all the information you want about an item, you can go ahead and save as attributes here. That's why when you search for a product in Amazon, it comes very fast because it goes ahead and fetches the information about that item from one single JSON document. Okay, so that's why it's able to fetch information faster. So you will notice that DynamoDB, if you take a look at the overview, it goes ahead and whenever you search for an item, it will be able to fetch the information from the database in single-digit millisecond. Now, single-digit millisecond means within 10 milliseconds. It won't even take 10 milliseconds to fetch information from the database whenever an application is accessing the database. So there is a website, Amazon.com is a website. It is accessing the backend database called DynamoDB. It goes to DynamoDB, asks for the information, and when it asks for the information, DynamoDB gives that information within, it won't even take 10 milliseconds. Okay, so that's single digit millisecond. It will go ahead and give a performance. Now you can go ahead and increase the performance of DynamoDB by adding what's called as a cache. That's called as DynamoDB Accelerator. Cache means memory. Every time you go ahead and fetch an information, if DynamoDB has a memory, that memory is called as DynamoDB Accelerator. In short form, it's called as Dax. It allows the recently accessed information from DynamoDB to be kept in the memory so that next time you go ahead and search for information, it will try to search it from the memory and not from the actual database itself. Okay, because actual database data is residing on hard drive. It takes time to fetch information from the hard drive. Whereas if it's kept in the memory, the time taken to go ahead and access it from the memory is very, very less. So it goes ahead and gives you 10 times better performance. Instead of single digit millisecond, now it will take only microseconds. This is very important to remember. So I would recommend you to go ahead and watch this video or explanation about DynamoDB Accelerator as well. So let's go back to the overview. Okay, I hope you understand how DynamoDB can fetch information from its table about an item. Any item you pick, it will be able to get the information in single digit millisecond. If you want to improve the performance, reduce the time from millisecond to microseconds, all you have to do is add a cache called as DynamoDB Accelerator. How to do that? Come here. Let's go back. There is something called as Dax. Now, DynamoDB Accelerator needs to be created in Dax Clusters only. So DynamoDB Accelerator will go ahead and want you to have Dax Clusters. Cluster means group of machines. which go ahead and do the same task. Okay. Now for Dax clusters, you have to go ahead and create servers. Okay. So you need to create a this is same like your EC2 instance, the same thing. But this is an EC2 instance which will be used for exclusively for DynamoDB cluster, Dax clusters. Okay. DynamoDB accelerator cluster. How many you want, you have to choose and you create. So please do not create Dax clusters and all. These are all not free tier eligible. If you notice, there is nothing called as T2 micro, see, or T3 micro. It's all small and medium. So that implies that this is not free tier eligible. Okay, you don't have to create. Just be aware that this is where database administrators would come to create Dax clusters. You do not have to create Dax clusters to understand this particular topic. Just be aware it's available. That's all. We've already mentioned about, what's that leave? Subnet groups. Subnet groups is how you go ahead and say, I want to create this Dax clusters inside a VPC, and in that VPC, I want to keep it inside this subnet or these subnets. So that's the reason why you would create a subnet group. We've discussed about subnet groups and parameter groups when we discussed about what do you call relational database. Same concept. Okay, there's no change. You will notice in all the managed databases, you need to have created a subnet group or parameter. Parameter groups are already available. These are default parameters that one would need while creating a database. So we just went ahead and used these parameters to go ahead and create the database. In the backend, that's what happened. And only database administrators are, recommended to edit these parameters, not you and me, because we are not database administrators. We do not know what each of the parameters should be, what the value of the parameters should be. That's why a default parameter group has been created. You just use it, that's enough. And this is what was used while they created this table for us. Okay. So that's about how to create a table, how to go ahead and create an item inside the table. And in case you want to go ahead and, search an item or search some information, you want to run some commands, or you want to create a query, hey, where is this table? Where is this particular item? You can search and it'll be able to find. Let's say we run. Okay, so it'll go ahead and tell more information about what happened. So when I tried doing it, it used it consumed 0.5 read capacity units. So like that, it'll go ahead and give us information, and it says I did not return any items like that. Fine, that's okay. So you would find that what you need to know is, I was talking about managed service. DynamoDB is a managed database. What do I mean by managed database? If you want, if and only if you want, and it is recommended that in a production database, backup of databases happen. If you want, you can go ahead and turn on backup settings. And when you do backup data gets saved on S3 as snapshots. And from there, you can always go ahead and, restore information. So the purpose of backup is to restore in case there is some discrepancy in the current version of the database. You can restore it back to an older database version or copy. So you do not create a backup right now. Please don't. While practicing, you don't have to. Okay, these are all only for production environment. You don't have to. If you are wanting to turn on, remember to go ahead and completely delete all the backup copies so that you do not incur cost. Okay. And if you want to update this DynamoDB database, or export information from DynamoDB to S3, that is also option. That's an option that's available. Importing from S3 to DynamoDB is also possible. Those are two options that are available. And if you are going ahead and buying DynamoDB database for a long-term use, you better go ahead and use reserved capacity. We've discussed about purchasing EC2 instance, reserving EC2 instances. Same concept is applicable while reserving databases also. So you reserve databases for a period of 1 year or 3 years. Okay, so you can don't choose to create it at the end when you go. Here I'm just showing you the options that are available. You can say, hey, how many read capacity units you want. Are you ready to pay on an hourly basis, or you're going to pay on an upfront basis? For how long, 1 year or 3 years? You can choose the duration. And if that is the case, what is the cost will come. Okay, if you go for, say, 3 years, if you pay upfront, this is the cost. Hourly basis, this is the cost. Like that, information is provided here for organizations or companies or small businesses when they want to use it for a long period of time. This is where they will come and reserve the capacity so that their cost is effectively managed. They save a lot of money when they go for reserved capacity. If they go and create a table like I created initially, this is called as on-demand way of creating, and you will not go ahead and be able to. This is free for me for now because it's free tier eligible. But if I go for a higher read capacity and write capacity unit, I might have to pay, and I don't want to do that if I'm going to use this for a production environment and especially for a long duration. So that's about DynamoDB as such. Make sure to go ahead and see what all you can do here. You can update the settings when you created whatever settings were there. You can update it. You can explore an item there. You can turn on deletion protection so that by mistake you don't want to delete it. Here, I do not want to turn on. Okay, I think the recording got stopped for some time. So apologies for that. So I was telling that you please make sure that you delete the DynamoDB database and you mention confirm like this. So ensure to choose the table and delete it without fail. That's it for this class. In the next class, we'll be taking a look at Elasticache and Redshift database.